Have you ever stopped to wonder if, in the midst of this digital whirlwind, we still own our emotions, or if we have become mere spectators in a spectacle designed to hypnotize us? We live immersed in an era where every second of our time is carefully orchestrated by algorithms and market strategies, and where content has become the lifeblood that gives meaning to our lives. The experience of swiping a finger across a screen has transformed into an almost instinctive activity, a need as essential as breathing. And in this maelstrom of stimuli, we sometimes ask ourselves, is this the future of human interaction, or merely the prelude to a silent revolution in how we feel and connect? On the surface, digital life offers us endless possibilities for connection, information, and entertainment. But behind the fascination with immediacy lies a more complex and often unsettling reality. Every video, every post, every song is designed not just to capture our attention but to immerse us in an intense emotional experience, sometimes fleeting and superficial. This saturation of stimuli has given rise to what many describe as brain rot, a state of overstimulation in which an abundance of information translates into emptiness, an inability to process or retain what truly matters. Throughout our existence online, we have witnessed how our attention span has been eroded by an incessant flow of microstimuli. We have grown accustomed to consuming content that barely leaves an emotional imprint, while genuine interaction has been pushed to the background. The nostalgia for those moments when a simple video or song could transport us to another dimension now mingles with the frustration of having to sift through hundreds of options just to find that rare gem that truly resonates deep within the soul. This process of selection has become a monumental challenge. In an infinite ocean of information, finding what truly matters is increasingly difficult, and at the same time, it has become a profoundly personal experience. The impact of this phenomenon extends beyond entertainment. It affects the way we relate to the world and to each other. Digital saturation diminishes our ability to connect without technological intermediaries, to form deep bonds in an environment that paradoxically connects us all while simultaneously isolating us as individuals. The constant barrage of content, carefully calibrated to evoke immediate emotions, leaves us with a sense of emptiness and an insatiable longing for something more meaningful. This search for significance and connection becomes a silent cry that echoes through every digital interaction, in every endless scroll through feeds seemingly designed to keep us in a state of constant emotional alert. The irony of our situation is striking. We have witnessed how the very tools that once promised to bring us closer together and make the world a smaller place have evolved into mechanisms that shape our internal reality and, in many cases, push us to the limits of our cognitive capacity. The transformation is so subtle that, at times, it is almost imperceptible. Yet, the accumulation of small emotional and cognitive fractures results in a wear and tear that affects not only our individual well-being but also the quality of our social interactions. When we take a moment to reflect, we realize that this is not simply a matter of screen time or the amount of content consumed, but the quality of that interaction. Digital saturation leads us to a kind of emotional paralysis. We are overwhelmed by immediacy and superficiality, and in this state of constant exposure to stimuli, depth and authenticity become scarce. It feels as if we are in a race with no finish line, where every step takes us further away from the possibility of pausing, breathing, and reflecting on what truly moves us. This transformation of the digital experience raises fundamental questions about the future of our relationships and the way we understand the world. The era of instant gratification, emotional overload, and microcontent seems to have reached a turning point. The sense of emptiness that accompanies endless scrolling through screens is not a sign that our cognitive abilities have been extinguished, but rather an indication that we have surpassed the natural limits of emotional stimulation. Our brain, that extraordinary organ capable of assimilating complexities and nuances, is now forced to adapt to an environment that knows no pauses or respite. This transformation is not necessarily a condemnation but could represent the prelude to a deeper and more conscious change. There is an emerging movement, almost imperceptible in its early stages, that seeks to counteract the whirlwind of ephemeral and superficial content. More and more people are beginning to question the quality of what they consume and demand experiences that go beyond mere entertainment. This awakening, driven by neurological and emotional exhaustion, invites us to rethink the role of technology in our lives. It hints at the possibility of a transition toward digital spaces that not only inform or entertain but also nourish the mind and spirit. The answer to this saturation does not lie in completely abandoning the digital universe, but in learning to navigate it more consciously and selectively. The key is to find a balance between immediate gratification and the search for meaning. Instead of being swept away by the relentless stream of content designed to be consumed and forgotten, we can choose a more deliberate experience, where every interaction has a purpose and lasting resonance. This paradigm shift does not stem from an outright rejection of technology, but from the need to rediscover the capacity for wonder and deep connection that once seemed inherent to our existence. The evolution of our digital practices is reflected in the growing popularity of formats that offer greater depth and coherence. Long-form conversations in podcasts, thematic explorations in YouTube videos without frantic cuts, and the formation of communities based on genuine interests are signs that, despite the saturation, the longing for authenticity remains strong. These new trends are not displays of moral virtue or nostalgia for the past, but a natural response to the fatigue imposed by the fast-paced and superficial nature of conventional digital interaction. More and more users seek spaces where immediacy is not the only value, where human connection and reflection have a place in an environment that often seems relentless in its pursuit of attention. The challenge is immense. The very mechanisms that have led to emotional overload are deeply embedded in the infrastructure of digital platforms. Algorithms, perfected to capture and retain our attention, have evolved to the point of influencing our moods and decisions almost imperceptibly. Content has become a product sold to the highest bidder, and our emotional state is the raw material on which marketing strategies are built, strategies we rarely question. This seemingly unstoppable model now faces resistance from those who, aware of its effects, seek a change that allows them to rediscover authenticity amid the digital noise. The question that arises in this context is not whether we are doomed to an empty, overstimulated existence, but rather what steps we can take to regain control of our emotions and attention. It is a call for introspection, to recognize that an excess of stimuli is not a sign of weakness but an invitation to explore new forms of interaction. In this scenario, digital fatigue becomes an opportunity to reinvent the way we consume and produce content. This is not a rejection of modernity but a conscious evolution that acknowledges the biological and emotional limits of the human mind. The landscape before us is complex and challenging, yet it is also filled with possibilities. Digital saturation, rather than being seen solely as an obstacle, can be interpreted as the threshold of a radical transformation in which the search for meaning and connection takes on a new dimension. In this process, every endless scroll, every click, and every like becomes part of a collective experiment that, though seemingly disorganized, points toward a future where emotional quality prevails over the sheer quantity of stimuli. The struggle to reclaim attention and meaning amid the digital whirlwind is a silent yet essential battle. It is not about opposing technology but about learning to use it in a way that respects our boundaries and enhances our capacity for wonder and reflection. This process involves both an internal reassessment and a transformation in how digital platforms design their strategies. The key lies in recognizing that immediacy, while appealing, should not come at the cost of depth. That fleeting pleasure should not erect barriers that prevent the development of meaningful relationships. The transformation on the horizon is the result of a series of small decisions, consciously choosing what to consume, prioritizing interactions that create lasting impact, and fostering spaces where reflection and dialogue take center stage. Each of these individual actions contributes to a collective shift, a reconfiguration of the digital ecosystem that, rather than exploiting our vulnerabilities, promotes personal growth and genuine connection. In this sense, resisting saturation is not an act of rebellion against technology but a reaffirmation of humanity's ability to find beauty and meaning amid chaos. The journey toward this new era will not be easy or without conflict. The economic interests and power dynamics that have shaped the current model are deeply intertwined with how digital platforms operate. However, The resilience of those demanding a more enriching experience serves as a reminder that even in moments of overwhelming saturation, the ability to reinvent ourselves and seek alternatives has always been present in human history. The exhaustion we feel after a marathon of content consumption is not a weakness. It is the manifestation of an intrinsic desire to connect with something more real, more human, more profound. The answer to this challenge lies in the combination of individual self-awareness and the collective transformation of our digital practices. It is imperative to recognize that the overload of stimuli, far from being an inevitable fate, can become the catalyst for change, one that allows us to redefine the terms of our interaction with the world. More and more voices are calling for a reassessment of our priorities, questioning the model of perpetual attention and advocating for an experience that values authenticity over immediacy. Hope resides in this innate capacity for adaptation and in the recognition that, despite the challenges, there is always a way to honor the complexity of the human experience. The transformation ahead is not merely a response to digital fatigue, it is an invitation to reimagine the role technology can play in our lives. Imagine an environment where every online interaction is not merely a reflection of a market strategy but an opportunity to build emotional bridges and cultivate meaningful relationships. In this scenario, technology would cease to be a tool of manipulation and instead become an instrument that, when used consciously, enhances our ability to feel, learn, and connect authentically. The process of rediscovery does not imply a complete rejection of modernity or a return to a pre-digital utopia. Rather, it is about learning to coexist with technology in a way that respects our natural limits and fosters a more fulfilling emotional experience. This journey requires reflection, patience, and above all, the willingness to recognize that the saturation of stimuli is not the end but the beginning of a search to regain lost balance. Every gesture, every decision to disconnect or to seek enriching content instead of exhausting distractions is an affirmation of our ability to choose what truly matters. Ultimately, the digital reality we inhabit is a reflection of our own complexity. The abundance of stimuli, far from being an insurmountable enemy, serves as a constant reminder of the transformative power of the human mind. The challenge lies in finding the balance between the immediacy offered by technology and the depth demanded by our existence. The feeling of emptiness that sometimes overwhelms us is a signal that we are ready to evolve, to seek a path where the quality of experiences outweighs the mere quantity of information. As we venture into this unexplored territory, the initial question grows stronger. Can we, amidst all the noise, rediscover the essence of what it truly means to connect? The answer, though complex, lies in our ability to question, to choose, and to transform. This is not a path without obstacles but a journey in which every conscious decision opens the door to a richer and more meaningful experience. In this process, digital overload becomes an opportunity to reinvent ourselves, to rediscover beauty in the ordinary, and to build, step by step, a future where technology and humanity nourish each other. This transformation demands a proactive attitude and openness to change. The exhaustion caused by excessive consumption of stimuli is, paradoxically, the spark that can ignite the desire to seek alternatives. It is the manifestation of a mind that, despite the saturation, longs for meaning, for experiences that transcend the fleeting. The revolution in our way of interacting with digital content will not come abruptly but will be shaped by small acts of resistance, by those daily decisions to disconnect in order to reconnect with what truly moves us. The horizon before us is vast and challenging, but it is also full of promise. In a world where content is becoming increasingly superficial, the search for authenticity stands as a beacon guiding our steps. Every time we choose a deep conversation over mindless scrolling, every time we engage with content that invites reflection rather than distraction, we contribute to the construction of a new reality. This is a reality where value is not measured in seconds of attention but in the ability to turn each experience into a bridge toward deeper connection. The path is not easy, and the challenges are many. But history has shown us that in times of oversaturation and crisis, human creativity and resilience find unexpected ways to reinvent themselves. Thus, amid the digital turmoil, a window of opportunity opens. The the chance to redefine not only how we consume content but also how we live and connect. Every conscious step, every deliberate choice, becomes part of a silent revolution that, little by little, reshapes the very essence of our existence. In the end, the question that sparked this reflection is more than rhetorical. It is an invitation to look beyond the obvious, to challenge the narrative of mindless consumption, and to build a future where technology is not a chain that limits our freedom but a tool that enriches our ability to dream, feel, and connect. At this crossroads, digital saturation becomes a warning sign, a call to wake up, to rediscover the inherent capacity of the human mind to overcome even the most overwhelming challenges. The journey ahead is an adventure that requires courage, sensitivity, and, above all, the firm conviction that the superficial can give way to the profound. The endless flow of stimuli, rather than being a condemnation, becomes the perfect stage for a new way of relating to ourselves and the world to emerge. In this process, every click, every pause, and every disconnection are acts of resistance against a system that, while it has shaped our lives, does not define our essence. The transformation is already underway, driven by those who dare to question the status quo and seek answers in the silence of reflection. Emotional saturation and cognitive fatigue are echoes of an inner call, the desire to reconnect with what is genuine, with what makes us feel alive. And it is precisely in that reconnection where the hope for a future lies, a future in which technology and humanity coexist in harmony, respecting natural rhythms and cultivating authenticity in every interaction. Every moment of introspection, every decision to look beyond the noise, is an affirmation of our ability to turn the digital environment into an ally in building a more fulfilling and conscious existence. The path to this transformation is long and will undoubtedly be filled with challenges, but it is also infused with the promise of a collective awakening, an awakening in which we can finally rediscover the value of calm, depth, and genuine connection. Ultimately, the digital whirlwind we find ourselves in is not the final destination but the prelude to an evolution that invites us to rethink what it means to live, feel, and connect. In the face of saturation and emptiness, the answer is not resignation but the active pursuit of balance. A balance that allows us to make the most of technology without sacrificing the richness of our human experience. And within that balance, in that synthesis between the instant and the lasting, lies the possibility of creating a future where attention is revalued, where every digital experience becomes an opportunity to nourish the soul. Thus, as we pause to reflect on the voracity of the digital age and the emptiness it often leaves behind, we realize that what is at stake is not merely the amount of information consumed but the quality of our life experience. In every interaction, in every search for meaning, we weave the story of a humanity that, despite the limitations imposed by technology, remains capable of reinventing itself, dreaming, and connecting with what truly matters. The answer to the initial question, therefore, is not found in the rejection of progress but in the affirmation that we are the masters of our ability to choose. On the horizon of a new digital era, the possibility arises to transform overload into wisdom, noise into a symphony of emotions that enrich our lives. And as we move forward on this path, every conscious step brings us closer to realizing a collective dream, to live in a world where technology, far from alienating us, inspires us to be more human, to feel more deeply, and to connect on a profound level. The digital future ahead is a blank canvas, an opportunity to paint new stories that transcend the fleeting moment and become the legacy of an era that knew how to reinvent itself. In that future, saturation will no longer be a burden but the driving force behind a silent revolution that reclaims the art of authentic connection. Each of us has the power to be part of that change, to take control of our digital experience, and to build, through small everyday actions, a world where the ephemeral gives way to the lasting. So, amid the digital chaos, the invitation is clear: question, choose, and reconnect. At the intersection of the immediate and the profound lies the promise of a richer existence, one in which technology ceases to be an obstacle and becomes the means through which we rediscover what it truly means to be human.